Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is the 13th of October, year 2021. Welcome, everyone. Hope everyone is having a fantastic Wednesday. We are here with some of the members of our normal panel, as well as our guest is here. So let me get started with introductions. So welcome, April. April is our psychic. She has done quite a few modalities of healing, like Reiki, hypnotherapy. The list goes on, and she's a spiritual teacher. She's been on the panel almost like a year, right? It has been a year. So welcome, April. Good evening. And then, of course, our incredible Eileen that has been here since May or June of 2020. So a very, very long time, consistent. Thank you so much, Eileen, for being here. She has actually completed her, or is in the process of completing her mindfulness meditation. So Eileen offers quite a few meditation courses. So watch out for announcements and posts on the Facebook group about meditations that Eileen offers. I think Ryan Astheimer, who is part of the Facebook Q&A panel, he also offers meditations on Evolver, as well as spiritual guidance. So if anybody's interested, please do contact Ryan as well. And then we also have Ken here, who is a fellow member and is one of our core group meditators. He's always here with us every Friday, sometimes Sundays. And right now he's here on this Facebook Live Q&A. One of the things I wanted to remind everyone is November 13th and 14th, some of the panel members, as well as group members, Eileen, April, Lakshmi, Terry, Kelly, and Leanne are offering a workshop, a weekend workshop. So anybody who's watching this, if they're interested in a whole weekend workshop, this time we are condensing it a little bit so that it doesn't seem too long a day that we have spent together. It's just for 5 hours, but beautiful sessions. We are looking forward to it with exuberant joy. So please do sign up for the workshops. Look out for the posts. There's one post already on the Facebook group. I'll keep posting this week and next week until the 13th of November. So to get started, April, one of the things that happened to me, or I was explaining recently, and this may be a bit of a sensitive topic again, so we'll deal with it like a little bit with sacredness. So one of the things that I was trying to explain to someone that, Iyanla Vanzant says, if we have physical pain, then there is some sort of guilt in our metaphysical, at the metaphysical level, we are experiencing guilt. And then when I was explaining this to this person, they said, oh, but I don't feel any guilt, right? So then I went back and looked at my past, right? As to how we can, and I want the panel members to look at their past, and everyone online, look at your past. So guilt can be something like, so I remember, and the example I gave them was, I remember when I was 8 years old, just like things have happened to Eileen and April at young ages, right? 6 and 7. So my father and mother separated. Like my father left and went and lived in another city with his parents, the city where his parents lived, right? So they separated. But as children, I don't know if y'all are familiar with this conditioned pattern of humanity where one of the parents uses the child as a pawn, right? So the children are taught to hate the other parent, right? So in the fact that we are taught that, and I know I remember, thinking of those feelings of not loving my father during that time until I actually grew a little bit older, maybe by 11, 12, I realized what my mother was doing, like the manipulation that was going on, right? That she was trying to influence us into not liking him. So that's where the guilt comes. And the guilt is those feelings of not liking the other parent, right? Or not being loving towards them is a not being aligned with source. At that point in time, even if we are 8 years old or 7 years old or 6 years old, we may think, how is this 6-year-old kid going to know that they're not aligned with source, right? But it is true that that kid is not aligned with source, so it is fostering guilt at the soul level, at the vibrational level. They are manufacturing guilt at that point because guilt is about not being aligned. Anytime we are not aligned with source, we are manifesting guilt, and then there's going to be shame associated with it because we are not pure. Like source would be unconditionally loving my mother, unconditionally loving my father, right? So do you see examples of that? You want to talk about that, April? Thank you.
Sure, I can try to address this. I think being human, at some point you will have guilt for something. And I have found it to be different for many people. It could be like in your situation, or it could be stealing something, or maybe you yelled at somebody. It's actually pretty common. And it's a common issue that I find that I have to work on a lot with others. It's something I had to work on with myself, but with others, of practicing self-forgiveness. So energetically, most of the panel members, we and our guests know that issues don't start in the body. They start outside in the energetic body, and they move in towards the physical body. So by the time it hits the physical body, now you have arthritis, now you have, headaches, now you have these other issues. That happens when you carry this guilt for a long time, when you carry the shame for a long time, the anger. When you carry that emotional state for a long time, it manifests into physical symptoms within the body. I think that, I want to say that I had guilt, and guilt can surface for me in my life because, of course, there's been things that I've done that I didn't want to do, or I can say I wish I didn't do. But when you align with source, when you learn your worth, when you learn that you are part of source and you align with that, and you don't doubt that, and you don't question any sense of your worth, so you have no lack in your worth, that melts away. It melts away because you realize that instead of, it's like looking at the child or looking at younger behaviors of myself. Wayne Dyer says this. He says, you had a 6-year-old self, and you had a 12-year-old self, and you had a 20-year-old self. when I look at those selves, right? When I'm aligned with source, I can see that that person was just on a journey. They were on a learning journey and they didn't know anymore or didn't have any more skills at that point. So then I released that guilt. And this is where the healing modalities come in, the meditations come in, the chakra work. This is where Joe Dispenza's work comes in, of releasing all of those trapped emotions and then creating the healing within the body. So, I mean, I can think of, usually if my guilt surfaces, it's usually surrounding not being the perfect parent that I had set out to be. It's usually about that, because I had a goal that I was going to be the generational breaker, that I was going to stop my girls from having the life I had. And while I did that to the most part, I didn't do that. And there's reasons why I didn't do that, but it's because I was on my journey. And you can't be on a journey and jump to point B. Yeah, it is a journey. Now, I did better than the previous generation. And then, of course, my hope is that my children will do better and their children will do better. So it's learning. It's also about that compassion, that, unconditional love, compassion, and understanding that you are a soul that's on a learning journey. And life, it can be difficult, and we won't always handle those situations perfectly. So that would be my suggestion. Yes, I've had guilt. I don't have it so much anymore. If I were to sit here and to wallow in the past, yes, I could drudge up some guilt feelings about when I perhaps was too strict with my daughters, but I don't allow myself to go to the past. And I realize that I did the best that I could do at that moment. So that's how I deal with it. And then I do all the energy work too. So.
Beautiful. Did you want to explain? I see Caesar has joined. Good evening, Caesar. Caesar is one of our panel members. He is a channel and a spiritual teacher. Good evening, Caesar. You want to explain the question to Caesar? Thank you.
The question, she talked about how she was talking to a member of the group, and they had physical issues, and she said that physical issues were related to guilt. The member of the group stated they didn't have guilt. So Poonam gave an example of something in her life where she had behaved in a way that gave her guilty feelings that manifests as a physical issue. So that's basically the question is, does that happen? How does that happen? And then I added in, what do I do to, kind of fix it?
Okay. So guilt is a form of non-acceptance of some sort, typically based around some expectations that you found later down the road that you perhaps didn't meet. So that would be, maybe a definition of guilt and an explanation of it. However, we're dealing with the pain body, and perhaps she's getting the physical end of the emotions confused. What it actually is pertaining to the guilt itself. Again, it is a form of non-acceptance of some sort, of surrendering to something that happened in the past that just doesn't sit well with you because you have not yet accepted it as it is. So perhaps saying you're sorry to yourself, maybe some closure. But the fact of the matter is that until you deal with whatever it is comes up, and these issues come up all the time for, they used to come up all the time for me, 50 times a day, passing something that, reminded me of something that I didn't do right in my life. And when it caused, the sadness or the guilt or the anger, I sat with it and allowed it to be. Quite frankly, and it passed right through. And that is about bringing it up, when it arises within you, when the pain body becomes active and it arises within you, It is there because of a particular thought. When you are able to accept that as it is and allow it to be, that is basically accepting whatever it is that you are blaming the guilt on. I'm imagining yourself for it. And where do I want to go here? Yeah, it's, like I said, it's about bringing when it arises, and you fully accept it by sitting with it, allowing it to be there. You don't really have to analyze it, like Eckhart says. Simply allow it to be. The emotion would be guilt. Don't have to do much more than allow it to be there. And what you actually are doing is bringing that, well, it's brought itself up from the darkness. And when you allow it to be and fully accept the isness of it, we can't change the past. What you are doing is dissolving it into the light of consciousness. It all, the emotions are good in whatever aspect you have them, because it's an indicator of where you are at in your vibrational frequency. And it allows you to understand that something is off. So you can use that as a course correction, something to get you back on track, because nobody likes them feelings, yet we bring them all upon ourselves.
This person is not aware of the connection between the physical illness and the guilt.
She's not aware of the physical illness and the guilt. Well, she's not associating the two. Well, I would say that's maybe silly, because we know that an emotion is the body's reaction to a thought. The thought comes and then the emotion happens, not the other way around. Perhaps it could be, Poonam. I mean, could the pain body arise without a thought? Can the emotion happen before a thought?
I think the pain body can arise without a thought, but a lot of the emotion is, once the emotion arises, a thought arises, and then the cycle starts.
Okay, so I had it a little okay, so I just learned something there as well. Thank you. But yeah, I think the only way through that is full acceptance, and not being able to change it. However you want to correlate it, whether it is attached to the thought or not. I guess it really don't matter at the end of the day. If you're not correlating that the guilt is because of of a thought, right? The question should be, how do we get through that? And the answer would be to fully accept whatever it is that is causing you the guilt. If you're feeling guilty, that is a type of pain. It is a sort of suffering at the end of the day. And we know for sure one thing that dissolves that is surrender, acceptance, forgiveness, pick one. And that usually does the trick for all pain issues, even physical pain from injury. It happens the same way. So.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Caesar, and thank you, April. What I had given an example of Caesar was, so we can accumulate guilt even as children. When we were 3 years old or 4 years old or 5 years old, something happens to us. And the example I gave was, my father left when I was 8 years old. He got up and left us and lived with his parents. So my mom kind of, the manipulation, that conditioned pattern that parents do, use the kids as a pawn, so make the kids hate the other parent. And we did go through a period of time that we acted as though we didn't like our father, just imitating her, right? We repeat until awareness arises, which we grew older. I remember by 11, 12, I had this unconditional love for my father, even though he had left. But that's the guilt. We were not aligned in that moment, in that past, present moment, because we were acting a conditioned pattern, unconscious pattern, even though it was from our family. which is my mother itself, her condition pattern. We were not aligned with source, and that creates guilt. That accumulates guilt. And we may have done quite a few actions of that type. So I was asking the panel, what are the examples? So I'll move to Eileen. Eileen may have some feedback. Thank you, Caesar.
Yeah, I think that April and Caesar said the things that I would have said to get past that guilt. You know, the acceptance, non-resistance to it. But I do have experience with that. And two things kind of popped into my head. And one of them was when I first started on this journey over 2 years ago, I remember having a lot of guilt for like those first years of being a mother, because, you know, my kids were probably 6 and 9 when I started on this journey, on this path. So, I mean, they already had many years with me unconscious, you know. And I remember thinking in the beginning, not anymore, but in the beginning, I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, I like harmed them, scarred them for life, you know, like just constant guilt and judgments of myself. And then, you know, I'm pretty sure it's in one of Eckhart Tolle's books about how we have to forgive others and ourselves for their whatever their state is at that moment, you know. So that state of unconsciousness, like I didn't do those things to harm them intentionally, you know. Oh, and Samar's asking for a story about my back pain story. But so I like I had to really work on that, like that, you know, I don't feel guilty. I don't judge myself. That was then, this is now. And when I forgave myself for all of that and let all of that go, like they're completely different kids. Like I'm different, they're different. So I know those experiences are like floating up in there somewhere, but it hasn't, you know, they're good kids, you know. Didn't matter that for the first 6 to 9 years of their life, they had, you know, a very unconscious mother. The other thing that came up for me was I remember, because you were talking about like how April and I, our, you know, lives started out. I actually didn't have that happen. I remember my dad was the opposite. He used to make us see her, our biological mother. He used to make us see her on weekends or during the summer. I remember him, she didn't have custody, but I remember him specifically making us spend time with her. He would even invite her over to our house with his, you know, new wife to include her in our life, even though she chose to leave it. And I remember always kind of questioning that in my mind, but I never questioned my dad. I just kind of thought about it like, why is he keep bringing her around? You know, like, but as a teenager, I became really wise to the reasons why she shouldn't be around, that she shouldn't be part of, you know, our life. And he actually apologized to both of us, my brother and myself. He apologized after his accident and said, you know, I'm really sorry. Like, I should have never been forcing you to see her. I shouldn't have been doing that to you. Like, and I said, you don't need to apologize, because I knew I shouldn't be spending time with her. You know, I I was aware. My brother, not so much, but I was very aware. So I remember him feeling guilty, my dad. And I remember him explaining that to us, that guilt that he had, and that thought he was doing the right thing and not doing the right thing. And being able to help him with that, him deal with the fact that, no, you don't need to have any, did what you thought was best in the moment for your kids. And that's what we all do. So Samar brought up the story about my back pain. Maybe she's bringing it up because we're talking about physical pain that can come from emotional, which I know that that's what it was. I don't know if it's necessarily guilt. Could be, totally possible. But especially now that we're having this conversation. But yeah, this is probably a year and a half ago now. I think it was not this past February, but the February before, where I had like a back pain, my upper back pain for like over 10 years. I had it, and it was like I always felt like I had like a golf ball stuck behind my shoulder blade, and it was there for like over 10 years, and I'd done everything I possibly could. And then I was actually watching a video from Greg Braden about a radical
Remission.
Yes, radical remission. Thank you. Radical remission that he had gone through the practice of gratitude, like being grateful for health and wealth, and being grateful for something, even if it's not existing at the moment. And I remember sitting in my bed watching this video and thinking, like, that's what it is. Like, just be grateful for, being healthy and ease of movement, like just going through that whole practice of gratitude. And it just disappeared in an instant, like in an instant, gone completely. So it obviously was not a physical thing. But it followed me for over 10 years, and it was gone in an instant. And I haven't had it since that day.
Awesome. Awareness is a wonderful thing.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful insight. So I'll give another example where, as a child, I remember even when I was 3 or 4 years old, I used to always have this sense of comparison with my brother. So envy, right? Like if he got, and I've said this quite a few times on the panel. So that causes guilt because, again, we are not aligned with source. April has said this quite a few times, and Eckhart has said that we come from a sense of, as soon as we are born, we are coming from a sense of lacking incompleteness. And so living life through comparison is another way. The envy, the jealousy of a sibling, that's our own brother, and you're feeling jealous. Like if he gets something, I need to get that same thing, right? So that would cause guilt. So I wanted to give that example. Thank you, Eileen. Moving on to Ken. Ken, did some insight arise or some flashback into the past?
Oh, absolutely. Oh boy, I got a lot on this one.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, my father was an alcoholic. My father was Catholic. My mother was Protestant. My father and mother were like oil and water, constant bickering, not much love. You put them separate, and all they would do is complain about the other. And I was completely fearful of my father. I couldn't sleep at night. I didn't do well in school. And my father used to call me stupid. I would never amount to anything. He said if I wanted to be anybody in life, I would have to make money. So those are just some of the beginnings. And my mother used to tell me, you're not stupid, but you're never going to be as smart as your brothers. So, and these were all told to me at a very, very young age. And two main things happened with my mother. When I was 4 years old, I took 7 tulips from a garden and I was happy. And I can picture myself happy bringing those tulips to my mother. When I got home, she spanked me 7 times, once for each tulip. And so from that point on, I was very afraid of my mother. And I went kindergarten, first grade, and then my first day in second grade, the principal of the school came to me and said, "Come with me." Took me to a first grade class and says, "This is where you're going to belong from now on." Well, because of how I lived with my mother and father, I always felt that I was unworthy. I always felt like I was a mistake. So when I went home, I didn't say anything to anybody because no one felt safe. The second day I went back to school, the second grade teacher says, "You don't belong here anymore. You go back to where the principal took you yesterday." Well, when I did that, I walked back to first grade and I urinated in my pants. That was total shame. I don't belong. There's something wrong with me. And I now know it's taken me. I'm in my late 60s now, and it's only been the last 5 years that I'm realizing what I've been holding on to that has really affected my whole life. And so anyway, and then with my father telling me at a young age that I'd be nothing in life. So at a very young age, I started selling lemonade. I got a paper route. I shoveled snow. So then I started getting his attention because I'm making money. Well, when I was 12 years old, my father says, "Now that you're making so much money, you're going to have to stop paying for your own way in living in life. Buy lunches, buy my clothes, pay for the dentist." And I had 3 brothers older than me that none of this ever happened. So that was really confusing. I felt like I'm being punished for doing what he told me I should do. So there were so many things in my life that were confusing to me. And then when I was 14 years old, I actually had a very close friend die. And I felt like that particular person was probably one of the first people that I ever felt love. And this person died. That's when I started drinking. I am an alcoholic. So, and then at 19, I actually, that's when I started my business. I had a landscape business. And so it's just funny how my life has gone and the things I've gone through. And I was very, very angry. And so I didn't have God at all in any of this. And when I was 35 years old, I actually got married at 19, 35. Now I'm going through a divorce. Well, things were so bad that I wanted to die. And so what I did is after about 10 days of not getting much sleep, it was like a perfect storm of other things that had happened to come up to this. And so about 10 days went by, not much sleep. Then I got on my hands and knees and I started bawling my eyes out. And I says, if there's a God, because I always thought there was a God that would punish me. And I says, if there is a loving God, please help me. Well, I had a white light experience the following night and it transformed my life. And so ever since then, and during this white light experience, I actually had what I call a Kundalini energy enter the bottom of my foot, and it went right through me, through my chakras, left my head. Well, for about 3 weeks, I was the happiest person on the face of the planet. Well, at that point, everybody thought I was nuts for sure because I was happy, and I wasn't happy before that instance. So it's just been amazing. So ever since 1988, I've been on this incredible path of self-discovery and learning to follow my intuition and learning so many different things that have happened to me. I'm just, really realizing that there's something much, much deeper, and that this presence that I call God is just showing me the way. And it actually at times has talked to me and has told me things. And so anyway, it's just been incredible. And this whole concept of learning to grow, breaking through the guilt, breaking through all these self-limitations, I'm now realizing that I'm bringing God into my life on any given thing that happens to me. I realize that there's actually thousands and thousands of little Kennys that have been hurt or traumatized, or things have happened that I hadn't worked through, the wounds and such, which is the pain body. So I'm now being led, and I realize that I'm being led to like-minded people rather than keep going into the black hole deeper and deeper. I'm led to like-minded people that are loving, kind, and I now, without a shadow of a doubt, know that we all have energy. And so, and what happens is anything that we're working through with prayer or through an experience, we will, our higher self is always taking us to where we need to learn. So, and this panel, and right now in my life, I've wanted to speak and show up for so long. And it was such, even in the last 6 months, it's been such a struggle getting on, because I get so close and I go into fear and I wouldn't show up. Well, after last week, I said, that's it. I can't keep doing this. I can't believe how calm I am now. I'm able to speak without stuttering, without having dry mouth. So I'm just so honored and glad that I'm finally showing up for myself and not thinking that I'm a coward or there's something wrong with me. And so anyway, I could go on and on and on, but I'm just so happy to be here. Thank you.
Beautiful. It's an honor and a privilege. Thank you so much for honoring us with that revelation. Beautiful. Thank you.
So grateful to have you here, Ken. I know you know that, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Thank you, Eileen, so much. You've been an incredible source in order for me to be here, believe me. Thank you. You all have, everybody.
I think consciousness just spoke through Ken's form, right? I want to take a minute to absorb this, Ken. Right. Ken, when we go through those experiences where like our mothers, and I won't say your mother, our mothers or fathers they have violent temper, which even Eckhart's father had a violent temper, right? And I can just go back into, so I've become very, like when presence power increases, right? We can go back and very neutrally see each of those incidents. It doesn't have an emotion. And this is the technique that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about in, what is it? Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That's the name of the book. He says, take the emotional charge away. You can look at your past and use it for wisdom, but take the emotional charge. Like when, we can go back to that point where we can see our mother beating us, right, for 6 tulips or 7 tulips. When we go back to that moment, take the charge of the hatred or the unloving towards the mother away. but see what is the mother saying in that moment. What is the soul saying in that moment? That soul or planetary intelligence through that soul is saying, Ken, get your alignment with inner beingness. You're looking for approval from me. Even my mother did it to me. She was like, she had the same explosive. So I kind of like have an adoration for Eckhart because it's sympathetic, right? I can understand his fear and that existential nausea, because I used to have that existential nausea when I was 8, 9, because I was terrified of my mom, and I'm left with my mom, right? My father is no longer there, so I'm left with my mom, and this is like a person that creates fear in us. And we just ate like puny little 8-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old. We are puny little, and there's this huge monster of a creature who's 5 feet tall or 6 feet tall, and we are like one foot or whatever we are at 3-4 years age, right? And they're beating us. But the compassion that we bring for them is they have pain. They're a heavy pain body, right?
Yes.
So instead of the mother saying, I have pain in me and I need to take it out some way, they just, the condition pattern, and especially you said you're 60+, so your parents would be 80, 90 years old right now, right? Their age would be 80, 90. That generation did not even realize. They've been through the 20th century, the World War I, World War II, Nazi Germany, the unconsciousness of the world, right? They've been through all that. How can we expect them to have loving kindness and compassion and unconditional love? We cannot. They've been through trauma.
And well, Poonam, I realize now in my heart that I have to go through all these experiences. I used to say, why, God, why am I going through all this? I now realize that I went through it so I can now help others that have gone through similar experiences.
Beautiful.
I mean, I didn't even mention, I have a son that actually died also of alcoholism. So, and that was the main hurt that I went through. And I realized he came in to play out that part. And I talk to Ken all the time, my son. So it's just something where it's just a miracle. It's just, it's beyond human understanding. So
Beautiful.
anyway, I thank you.
Thank you. So exactly what Ken described leads me to the next question that was asked of Eckhart. So April, here it is for you. And then I'll post it on the chat. Summer is asking a question. So Summer is asking a question. Do you think we would have become enlightened had we not come to the US and stayed in the countries we were born in? Probably not, because that's what Eckhart says, right? Like, if he would not have moved to the US, then he probably would have been sick in London and not amounted to anything. He may not have produced the power of now. So the move was necessary. That was the evolution of consciousness, right? So that was needed. So here's the question, April. How can you be free of imprints of childhood traumatic experiences? Is there a way to remove them? Can we actually be fully free from residual effects of childhood trauma? Is the question. And I'll post it in the chat. You want to get started?
So the short answer is yes, you can. It does take work. It is a journey. It takes a lot of insight. So it's still, and I've mentioned this before, but it's still a phenomenal thing to me that how much of a sponge we are as a child, how much our childhood affects us, that age 0 to 7, and some children are different. Some children, their brain turns on at 6, some it's not till 8. And like I was explaining to somebody today, and I know a lot of people use this analogy, but I was saying to them, you know, it's not the computer that's broke, it's the program that's broke. So it's not your brain that's necessarily broke. It's what you're telling your brain. It's how your brain is functioning. What was the program that you got? So, you know, computers, you know, you can have a computer, but if there's a virus on it, it's not going to work. If the program is not a good program, it's not going to work. Your program is what you watched, what you dealt with, what you seen in your childhood, what you experienced in your childhood. So for me, my childhood was pretty rough. It was a rough childhood. And my father actually, there was a period where my father was actually trying to erase my mother. He was trying to say, yes, that she didn't want us, she didn't love us, she didn't like us, didn't want to see us, which was not true, but that was part of my dad's control. He just wanted us and that's it. So there was a period where he was actually trying to erase her, and it was one of my aunts that kind of stepped in that stopped that. So, you know, not only did I have, you know, issues with my parents being young, issues with my father being angry, issues with my parents separating, thinking my mom giving us up to my dad, and then my dad not letting us, like, I mean, I have so many areas that I can have imprints and it does affect us. And I'm going to say this again because I really can't stress this enough. Once you realize that you have infinite worth, it does not matter. Once you realize you have this infinite worth because you are from source, it melts all of these things away. And I know it seems like it matters. But when I can align with source and I can know my worth and I can know that I'm on this journey and that I don't have to be perfect. I never had to be perfect. And that, as Eckhart's been teaching lately, that everything that has happened was supposed to happen. When I can practice that acceptance, then I can remove that emotional charge. I cannot remove that emotional charge if I don't practice acceptance. If I don't move into what Eileen's gratitude, if I don't move into that gratitude and say, thank you, Mom, for leaving me. Thank you for not being there. Thank you, Dad, for beating the dog plus us. Thank you for, if I don't do that, I can't get rid of the imprints. Now, does that mean that, oh, voila, I'm just this magic, you know, Mary Poppins? No, it doesn't. I still have to do internal work. I still have to work on my internal dialogue. I have to work with maintaining my energy with source. I have to work on my emotions. So I'm not saying that it's easy, but I'm saying yes. And then also, this is a thing that I think all of us are on this journey. And while, you know, Buddha might have got there and Jesus might have got there and other people, I don't know that I don't think I'm getting to Jesus status. I don't think I'm going to get there this time. But I think we're all on that journey. So you need to also, like, I have a compassion for myself that I'm probably not going to be Buddha this time. I'm just not, right? Because I had so many imprints, but I am surely on the path. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I would like to get as close as I can possibly get, but I'm also okay with not having perfection, because being on the spiritual path, we don't want to get caught up on that too, right? The other thing is, so what I'm saying is, in a sense, some of these imprints will never fully go away. They will resurface. And some of them, but I don't want you to confuse this with, I don't want to get rid of them necessarily, right? Because if I get, so I can remove them, I cannot be attached to them, but I don't want to necessarily remove them because I needed them for this journey. So it's more about embracing them and having gratitude. But healing them through the acceptance than it is about getting rid of and eliminating. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Perfect sense. Thank you, April. Exactly, because what Abraham Hicks says, the contrast needs to be shown so that we can make the next choice, right? Send out that rocket of desire. Just like in my case, because of my existential nausea with my mother, the desire arose that I need to leave her like as fast as possible. When I grow up, I need to leave her. And I left that country, right? I put so much distance between her and me. So it wouldn't have happened. This whole somebody has to do the funding. Some school has to accept me as a student. I have to get on a plane. That plane has to make it all the way to the US, right? So many things. I mean, I'm just stating 3 or 4 things. There are a gazillion things. The cooperative components that needed to manifest that desire, I could probably make it like 30, 40 components that needed to come into place for everything to happen. But that's what happened, April, that the fact that from all that experience, now you've come to this psychic ability, this ability to connect with your inner beingness and be connected to source. What more can you do? Right?
For sure. I always had that psychic ability as a child. I always had that sense. But I 100% believe that abusive homes is the perfect school for psychic ability. It's the perfect school because I have to judge whether you're going to get angry and start throwing stuff before you do it. I have to know that. I have to start reading energy from way back here. That's a perfect school for a psychic.
Mm.
It was perfect. And then soon, I mean, I left, I was forced to get married at 15. So I'm with my dad, and then bam, I'm with an abusive alcoholic. I had so many, I might as well went to psychic college. Like, so it was perfect.
Yes.
Between the childhood and the adult life. Thank you. Phenomenal. Thank you. Eileen, did you want to say something about this? Can we get rid of traumatic imprints? Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I actually kind of started talking about it earlier when I was answering the other question. So I was explaining earlier about my own 2 children and the guilt that I initially had over, that first 6 to 9 years of their life. And what I would add is that those 6 to 9 years of memories, or whatever you want to call it, past conditioning, whatever, is not going to go away. Like, those experiences happen. That is the past. That is the memories. That is the data that's stored in there. But the thing is it doesn't exist right now. It's stored data that we can clean and make nice and tidy and clear it out to the best of our ability. But the only thing that ever exists is this present moment. So I think that's why my kids have really changed over the last 2 years drastically, because obviously I've changed drastically and I'm a role model for them, but they don't meditate every day like I do. They did in the beginning, but not now. Even if I want them to. But they live, for the most part, they live in the present moment. And those past memories and all of that information, like, it doesn't come into the present moment unless it's needed. unless there's, some type of lesson that needs to be learned. And I know it happens to me all the time where things will cycle back and it's like, oh man, I thought I was done with this. Or it's like those things are still in there. They're still accessible. Ken could remember all of those details of everything that happened and be grateful for it, that, it happened and that he's able to pull that and use that as part of this process, not just for him, but for all of us. But yeah, I don't think that those imprints, like they don't just disappear. You're not like rid of them. But when somebody says like residual effects of trauma, I wouldn't necessarily think of that as a bad thing. I think if you're unconscious and you're not working on your presence practice and you're living in the past or going and trying to live in the future, then yeah, it's going to be a problem. But if you're working and being in the present moment and you're grateful for your past and what it's brought you to in the present, then I think that it's a tool.
Beautiful. Thank you, Eileen.
Mhm.
What does Eckhart say? Nobody can act beyond their level of consciousness. Neither could they, nor could we. So have forgiveness and self-compassion, compassion for them and compassion for us. That's so beautiful. Caesar, you want to talk about this question that was posed to Eckhart during Be the Light course? Thank you.
Okay. That was awesome, Eileen. Yeah, so I mean, what the big picture is when you carry them effects for so long is the victim mentality. However, be justified early off, but to choose to carry them around is a choice. One would not think that is the case, but who else is going to carry it around? Why is it there still? There's many ways to dissolve it. I think the best way to dissolve that and be fully liberated is through acceptance, complete acceptance of what is. We can't change the past. And, we're going to go a different way because everybody else really explained it really well. We'll go to the law of attraction with this. So to feel that way constantly is just inviting more of it. So you have gathered great momentum of this trauma and this victim mentality over these years, and it cannot be stopped on a dime. You have to slowly break that momentum and shift the other way, and that happens as soon as you fully accept the isness of it. And that would also, probably forgiveness, forgiving the others involved, forgiving yourself for not doing it earlier, but it must be fully accepted, and that is the way through the experiences, the imprints. Like Eileen said, the data will remain, but it should be a choice that you recall it to use it as the tool, like she said. That was beautiful. And in that way, I believe you can help other people by recalling it. And then you can tell your story and how you got through it, through the acceptance and the forgiveness. But, again, know that when you are feeling this agony, because you can probably think about the situation today, and let's say it happened 30 or 40 years ago. And when you think about it in the moment, you probably get the exact same pain that you felt, at the time, early off. And that must be terrible. And to really fully accept it as though you had chose it sounds crazy, but you must accept it in that way fully, and learn to become present. Because if you are fully engaged in the present moment, this will not be an issue. You must think of the past for that to arise in you. Or as Poonam said, it could, come out in the pain body and be a result of that. However, there is resistance, and that is the cause of the pain. You've developed, again, maybe deservingly so, the victim mentality over all these years. And by feeling and vibing that low energy, only creates more of it in different ways, shapes, and forms, which is, the ego loves to keep that stuff alive. Because that's your identity according to the ego, the ID entity that is within you, or the false self, as Eckhart calls it, just really, really, really loves that type of stuff. And it's going to do all that it can to keep it alive. Now, it is up to you to compose the awareness of the ego, and just the awareness alone, that when this comes about, that you are recalling a past situation, would be presence itself, I believe. The awareness that you're not in the present moment, as Eckhart would say, is presence. And that would be a great practice, a time to start, and time to begin this new liberated journey that frees you of that bondage and that type of pain there, in that particular situation. It is possible. Yeah, I mean, the Christians again would call this the way of the cross, when it gets too much to bear. When you turn it over, that is fully accepting it, saying, now you deal with it, because I can no longer, it's too painful. So again, yes, the full-on acceptance of the situation and forgiveness perhaps might play a part here. And then things will start to reveal better days. The freedom from that will inspire you to keep in that direction, let's say, because ultimately you have to break that particular momentum that's been gathering for so long and start anew. Start creating a momentum that feels good. Don't place your energy, your attention, your focus on anything that doesn't feel good, although it might be hard. April really nailed it too on that one. But yeah, so that must first be dealt with through acceptance and forgiveness, I believe, and then you will find liberation from that. You can be free from that for sure, 100%. And again, the contrast of having it there is going to make life taste all that much better as a result.
So you believe that there is a way to completely dissolve all imprints of trauma?
The trauma itself, but as Eileen said, the data perhaps would still remain in some way. I don't think you can really ever erase anything from your mind. What is it, EMG or something? There's where they do the
EMDR?
Yeah. I guess that might be a possibility to fully erase that. Maybe hypnosis. I don't know. But the surrender itself can free them from the suffering end of it. Not sure if it erases the data completely.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Caesar. I think Eckhart has this talk on one of the things that you said is about the cross, that each one is bearing a cross. And Eckhart has this talk on, the book is named The Imitation of Christ, which actually is, imitation is not to imitate Christ, but to be like Jesus Christ, right? Mirroring his, how he lived his life, mirroring that life. It's by Thomas R. Kempis. I think he was a monk, Thomas R. Kempis, and he wrote a book. And in there, Thomas R. Kempis, or this is the excerpt that Eckhart reads, that if you put one cross down, like you have to bear your cross. If you put one cross down, your cross will just become bigger and larger. You'll be now carrying a bigger and larger cross. So don't put your cross down, is what Thomas R. Kempis is saying. And to me, that translates into, we may think that, okay, I'm going to keep this victim identity up, right? And that's how I am. I surrender to the victim identity. But just because we put that cross down, that we are a victim identity and we are not doing anything about it, it'll manifest into a bigger chronic illness. All these lifestyle illnesses like multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, all of these are, the metaphysical level is, we are so disconnected from the body that we are manifesting these chronic illnesses. There are ways to actually heal. You were going to say something, Caesar? No? Okay. Thank you. Ken, did you want to say something about this part?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Your question was about trauma. Can you get rid of it or release it? And how I'm doing it is, I realize that if I hear something from somebody, if I'm around somebody, I feel discomfort. That is their green light for me to know that there's something inside of me that's still lingering. I call it the invisible splinters that are just waiting there to come to the surface when they get triggered. And so if I get a charge, or if I feel some type of pain, hurt, anger, whatever it is, I have to allow myself to feel that actual emotion. And if I think I'm feeling the wound or the emotion, it will keep coming back. So I'm just learning to pray, meditate. I'm learning to talk to others. And when I do, I usually will get closer to the discomfort if I want to step into the fire and not fuel the discomfort or fuel the ego. So, and probably one of the biggest things for me, most of my life, I just hated who I was. I didn't feel I deserved. And when I started the journey, and then learning about the shadow, learning about the patterns, the triggers, and the attachments, and so on, I started to realize that these are all layers that I accumulated, that I kind of pushed under the rug. So in order for me to really confront a lot of these issues, I had to be willing to go into the pain and suffering. And the pain and suffering, one time, I just wanted to numb it. And then it got to the point, the pain and suffering are actually my answers. So now I welcome pain and suffering or the discomfort, because it's going to bring me to the original pain that I'm hanging on to. And a lot of that did go back when I was a child. So I had to learn to love myself. And rather than just say it, because when I first started saying it, I didn't believe it. And then I thought I was a phony. So I had to fake it till I make it. And I realized that a lot of these things, it's like running. If you haven't run for a while, then you run for a mile, you're going to have aching muscles. Well, it's the same thing with my emotions. So I started realizing that the body is just mirroring so much with others. And and now I'm learning that I need to learn the language of the body. And so more and more is just coming to the surface. And so again, I could go on, but learning to really love myself unconditionally, rather than human love. To me, human love is what's in it for me. And usually human love will bring up the hurts and the wounds and whatnot. But when I truly surrender and ask for help, and then what will happen is God always puts loving people in my life. And I'm realizing at one time I thought I could live by myself and I could figure everything out. And I'm now realizing, no, I can't. So I've surrendered in so many different ways that were hidden from my view. It's really just bringing up new ways of being. And now I love being in the world rather than running or hiding from the world. So I'm just, again, just very, very thankful for the people that are doing the work. So we can all come out of this in one piece. Thank you.
Beautiful. Amazing. Thank you so much, Ken, for sharing that.
Thank you.
So I'll bring up what Eckhart responded. Eckhart kind of said that they may not be a possibility to clear all the trauma if you've had, and he talked about his own trauma, that because he had a father who was had that kind of explosive anger as a child, because he was a very sensitive child, he stored that energy, right? The fear, just like Ken is saying, I felt it. I'm sure April felt it as well. When the parent, with that 5 foot, 6 foot, 7 foot parent is being angry and towering over us, then we feel the fear, right? Like we contract. So Eckhart says that whatever damage was done to his body as a child, he's never done anything about it. So it is already done. Yeah, they may not have been like people go through more trauma. He may not have gone through that level of trauma by the sexual abuse or abuse, or like he was never hit, but his father had I think his father and mother were very violent relationship, like they fought a lot. So what he says is all you can do is examine your condition patterns and see, just like what Ken is saying, right? Investigate your emotion. Where is the emotion arising? Eileen has a beautiful, you use splinters as an example. Eileen uses Buddha's arrows. Like the wound is the first arrow, but there's the second arrow and a third arrow and the fourth arrow. And you need to actually not remove the second, third arrow. It's like the first, if you were to go around and just yank the first arrow, then we would heal. But we go around it, like we go tiptoe around it, right? I think Dr. Wayne Dyer, everybody, Louise Dunaway and April bring up Dr. Wayne Dyer. Dr. Wayne Dyer, I think, used that example. We just like tiptoe around, like, you know, there's an arrow and we're just like pressing around it, kind of. That's what we do. We don't like yank the arrow, right? So yanking the arrow would have helped us. So Eckhart said is exactly what Ken is saying. We can look at a condition patterns and emotional field and heal the emotional field, but awareness is needed. The presence power is needed. Now, what I would say, and a lot of people actually don't like the Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations, the music, the loud music that he plays, because I play some of my meditations, I end up playing Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditation. So what Dr. Joe Dispenza is saying, so here is where the healing is. And if people can, I'm going to combine everything that the panel members said. If we can take ourselves out of the victim identity that Cesar brought up, right? One, we have to make the decision that we are not going to have that victim identity. Then start the meditation, like the process of meditation and raising a vibrational frequency. So the reason why Dr. Joe Dispenza has such aggressive music is we have to realize that he is working with somebody who may have cancer, like tennis ball cancer in the spine and 3 or 4 knots of this tennis ball size cancer, right? Tumors in their spine and so he is trying to get this person that is physically debilitating, very weak, and now get your energy up. And we know, and I'm sure the panel members that have raised their vibrational frequency, it does require a lot of focus to raise the vibrational frequency where you have that white light kind of experience, right? So to raise your Kundalini, it does require, that's why he is kind of like very aggressive. But what Dr. Joe Dispenza is saying, because there are infinite possibilities in the unknown, in one of the holograms, and I'll post this video of his. He says it's almost like, I don't know if anybody knows about the science of that we may be a hologram and we are a series of infinite holograms. And so what we are trying to pull by being in the unknown is that human or that body and mind that has no pain, no sickness, no trauma. That's what we are trying to pull from the quantum field as what Abraham Hicks would be calling it as be in the vortex, be tuned in, tapped in, turned on. That's what Abraham Hicks says, right, Caesar? You're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, which Dr. Judith, what Eckhart calls presence power, or being aligned with your inner beingness. Or Dr. Joe Dispenza says, be in the unknown, be in the void. He takes you into the spaciousness, takes you in the void. He's saying, move from, and it's like boxes. He says, move from this box that had the pain, had the trauma, and you shift. You make the shift into pull this new body, new mind, where there is no trauma. And y'all can look at testimonials. Y'all can look at remissions, like people have had cancer and they've had remission. A person who has a broken back, they've had remission, right? Person who has stroke has had complete remission, complete healing. So there is a way, but that requires, what is it? An intention, a thought. The thought is what Abraham Hicks calls rocket of desire. The thought with the intent needs to be there, and the thought will attract it, but the emotional field is what is going to pull it. So the emotional field needs to be that of loving kindness, compassion, the unconditional love, the gratitude, right? What Eileen said about gratitude. So she must have, when Eileen was able to pull that body of Eileen that no longer has back pain, that pull would have been, that's why she was in a state of gratitude, and that emotional field pulled that, right? Perfect example. It's been like an hour, 20 minutes, so we'll disperse for today. I hope everyone got something out of this session. You made it like so sacred, Ken, with your revelation. It was incredibly amazing, right? So the panel members agree. I see them nodding. So thank you so much. Eternally grateful to all of you here, as well as out there online with your input. It's getting late. I can see the tiredness in Eileen's eyes. It's getting late for the East Coast. So have a fantastic week. I'll see you all on Friday for meditation. Many blessings. Much love. Good night.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.